One of the interesting things about a model like FFT and other evidence-based and comprehensive and systematic models is that because there is a clinical map, meaning there are a series of phases that you go through in the change process, it's kind of interesting because as you begin, you already know where you're going to end up. A family who has built alliance, who's engaged in the process, who around a few items that are relevant to them, a few events, a few particular behaviors, they have been successful at problem solving and working together to work things out. And at the same time, they've also improved communication or conflict management. Maybe the parent has become much more alliance-based and collaborative in their approach, working as a guide and a teacher. The interesting point is that the family has not yet taken those skills and totally made them part of who they are. What I mean by that is that your focus and your discussion has not been on them as a whole, but it has been on how they're going to work out a particular set of things. As we all know, problems and struggles and challenges in families are not a one-time event. They're constant. They happen every day. There's always issues that families have to work out. So the point is that in any treatment, there is no way in the world to be able to help them directly work out each thing, because there are going to be things that come forth in the future that they're going to have to negotiate, work out, and use these skills with. So the goal of FFT, and actually the goal of any good psychological treatment, should be at the end of the day to empower the family not only to have a set of skills, and not only to have been successful at using those skills to solve some things, but also to feel empowered and know how to use those in the future as things come up. This phase and this set of skills and this set of goals that you accomplish at the end of FFT is what keeps relapse from occurring. So while you may help families make change around certain things, what happens frequently is another event will come up and they will bounce back to their old way, because it is very hard once you have an established pattern to totally change that. So let's be really clear that this last phase of treatment, how you end treatment, which, by the way, you know about from the beginning because of the model, here you're going to be able you're going to start not adding more things to the family, but helping the family take what they know from the climate from engagement and motivation, the skills for behavior change, and actually learn to, on their own, apply those to situations as they come up. What happens is that they end up feeling empowered, they end up having self-efficacy and self-confidence, and their life gets better and they function better. And when things come up, they don't become the crises that they were in the past. So the goal is to generalize, maintain, and support the change that you've helped them accomplish all through treatment. Maintaining change is a really big part of this, because every one of us know how hard it is to change a behavior and keep that behavior changed. As I said in some of the earlier videos, and you may hear me say, how many times have all of us tried to begin exercise or diet routines only to find that we're quite good at it for a while, but as soon as we run into a situation where we don't keep it going, it's very easy to get off track. So any good treatment, and in FFT particularly, our objective is to empower. Therefore, we have to, before we're done, stop teaching new things and focus our attention instead on how they can maintain the change. So our goal here is for them to use the skills that they've developed in behavior change to take on other challenges. Maybe they're challenges that existed, maybe they're challenges that come up in the future, and sometimes they are about bigger things like school, the welfare system, peers, etc. The goal here is to create youth and family support networks so they can manage issues. So sometimes maintaining change is about knowing who it is that you can turn to and when you should. Sometimes maintaining change is to know what skills to use, and other times it's know where to turn to help with big issues in a family supportive manner. The goal here, take the changes you've helped them develop around certain issues, whether it be school or behavior, and generalize, rather than come up with a new one, generalize those successful skills to these areas. Help them maintain it through relapse prevention, and support change both professionally and through what's probably even more important. Identify indigenous family support systems that parents and youth can rely on when things get tough. All of this is done in a way that maintains a safe, stable, and functional relationship pattern between the youth, caregivers, foster parents, or parents. Let's look at how generalizing works. I mean, think about it. In your discussions with them so far, what you've done is you've taken an event, a school event, struggling with homework, bad behavior, difficulty between and conflict between the parent and the youth. You have, in the behavior change phase, helped them develop a skill, largely a protective factor like alliance-based problem solving, maybe some communication factors that help with that. And again, the content area, meaning the thing you talked about to make it relevant, was an event going on or a series of events or a historical series of events between them. In some sense, that's your primary target. And in behavior change, you worked on that. So what happens next? In the series of sessions that happen in the last phase of FFT, you need to change your direction. Stop talking about new things, and instead, when new events come up, talk about how they can apply the skills that they learn to that new event. So for example, generalizing means that as new events come up, you're going to apply the same skill. Now that may seem like a simple thing, but from a family's perspective, each new area feels like a new problem. So one thing you're going to do is help them identify how that new area is similar to the other and how the skills they already have fit that. You know, parents and caregivers are just like all of us in the sense that when a problem comes up, we think it's a unique one. In a sense, when you think about meaning and patterns and functions, as we do in FFT, it's probably a similar problem, a similar pattern, even though it's in a different area of content. So, goal number one, take the skill and apply it to the other area. Now, what does this take from you? It's important that you stop adding new things and stop doing the teaching and directing. And instead, your guidance is to ask them to reach back to find the successful thing from another event and try it. So your job is to put that skill in front of them, link it to this area, show them how this new event is similar, and then sit back and let them try. Guide them, keep them on track, but let them do it themselves. And this means, as a therapist in the generalization phase, you're more directing and letting them do it as opposed to do it for them, which is what you did very much in the behavior change, which is by design, and which is what you very much did in engagement motivation by design. So generalizing means that you don't have to worry about in the behavior change solving each thing. Generalizing in this last part of FFT means that you can take the few things you've done, keep things simple, and get them to use it in a new area. Now, it may be, for example, that the first thing you work out is going out with friends, and then you have to take the same problem-solving skill and use it when a homework issue comes up, or when something with a sibling comes up, or time with a boyfriend, time with a girlfriend, time with peers comes up. So again, rather than seeing it as a new problem, see it as a similar relational pattern to which the skill that you worked on in behavior change will fit. The second goal is maintaining change, and maintaining change is that whole notion of, when you've got a good skill going and you run into a new event or you lose it, how can you get back and get started again? So it's not coming up with something new, which is what people frequently do. It's reviving the thing that worked before. Now remember how this is going to work. In these last sessions, you're going to be talking about how things are going. And you're going to be either talking about their ongoing struggles, because they will have them, or you're going to talk about future struggles that come up. You want the discussion to be focused not on how to fix it or what the issue is or who's to blame, but instead, what are they going to do to help maintain the support, the climate, the alliance, and the skills that they had before? And that's a question I frequently put to families. How can you maintain this? You've got something that worked. The goal for you is to respond to these new issues that come up and not to worry about it, because families have problems all the time. So instead of struggling with it, embrace it and help them do it themselves. Help them rely on other services. Help and begin to have them use and feel empowered themselves. Now, in some sense, that requires, for example, paying attention to bigger things outside. Because one thing that happens is while families solve things internally, there are bigger issues like extended family, school, the justice system, the child welfare system, the ongoing struggles with court, with foster parents, with birth parents. Those things will continue. And the whole goal here is that when those come up, that they're able to use the skills that they did and maintain the same client to work together to solve the issues of extended family or community or these additional areas like legal and child welfare that can get in the way and inadvertently derail the change that you did. So as we'll talk about as we move along in the training, the idea here is to take what you've done and now begin to look to the outside more. Begin to think about the broader system. Remember, in the beginning of FFT, the focus was on just the family system. So now we're going to expand that. Maintaining change has to do with relapse prevention. And the alcohol literature has done a wonderful job of helping psychotherapy approaches learn the notion that just because you change doesn't mean you stay changed. And in fact, the notion of maintaining change is very much a change, and then a second, different, and independent process is learning to maintain it. So this phase is not just about more skills. It's about a critical step in maintaining that change, and that does not happen naturally. Relational systems like families quite naturally bounce back to where they were and what's familiar rather than stay in a change spot, even though it may have worked. First step in maintaining change is to take the attitude on your part and convey very clearly to them that whatever successes they've had, it will be and it has been an up and down experience, and that's not over. What that basically means is there's more work to be done. Often they feel like it's an up and down experience. They feel like a failure. They feel like when things go bad, it hasn't gone well, and therefore they haven't been successful. The goal is to help them reframe a new event as a normal experience in the change process. And it's an opportunity for new information about their struggles. So what you learn as they come about challenges in the generalization phase is you learn about which extended systems, the legal system, extended family, the community, school, probation officers, child welfare workers, what those struggles will be. And it helps your understanding of the family, but it also helps you know where they need to apply the skills. And the goal is, despite the current discouragement that they might run into, bring the behavior change back to the table and start with it again. Each time they do that, they become more empowered and the change becomes more permanent. So remember what part of maintaining change is. It is empowering them by helping build the confidence and the efficacy that they can do it. One thing that has to happen is you've got to be very clear. That whatever success they've had so far is them. And you have to be very clear that when new events come up, they need to bring into focus and think about it as an opportunity to take the next step in their change and in their change process and all that they've accomplished. Let's take a look at relapse prevention for a minute, and we'll talk more about this as we move through the training. But, relapse is normal. Everybody, when they start to change something, they run into something that makes it hard for them to continue. So relapse isn't a bad thing. The downside for families and youth is as soon as a relapse happens, they believe that the bottom has fallen out of their world and that all their effort is for naught. So it is incumbent upon you to make sure that they don't see it as that, but instead it is an event that requires them to step up, and it's a solvable event. So first of all, when it happens, and it will, acknowledge the disappointment of the struggling and encourage them to try again. It's important that you remember it's an up and down process and it's not a linear one. This is normal. Number 2, reframe any blame focused on another family member for it, because you know what? If you've worked really hard to make the changes that you've helped them make, if you've contributed to the success of the family so far, when something happens, if you're a family member, it's not inconceivable that you'll be upset at the person that seems to have caused it. But remember, that's a problem definition, and you reframe that problem definition so that you take away the blame. Integrate what happened into the relational theme. The family relational theme that we talked about is your thread through all of this. And what's critically important is don't bail on that now. Keep that going. That is the continuity between the phases. So when something comes up, frame it, reframe it, take the blame away, but make it and bring back the relational theme as a way to organize that. Be very clear about what the skills from behavior change were that worked and how they would fit this. And then help them by guiding their renewed attempts. Do just enough to get them started. Look for the point where you can step back so that they can attribute it to themselves, so that they can go through it themselves.